A frantic galactic emperor pounded his fist in fury, slamming it so hard the ornate table cracked. His daughter, Princess Zara of the mighty star-spanning Sakari Empire, was missing, vanished without a trace on a fledgling primitive world called Earth. Just a day before, Zara had taken her private shuttle on a routine diplomatic trip to Earth. The blue-green planet had only recently been discovered by Sakari scouts. It was home to a bipedal species called humans, who had yet to even achieve faster-than-light travel. By galactic standards, they were backwater yokels, primitive brutes of no real importance. But now, that simple world had become the most crucial place in the galaxy to Emperor Jackson. His beloved daughter, his only child, and heir to the empire that bore his family name, had disappeared on that cursed planet. Preliminary reports indicated her craft had suffered a catastrophic malfunction, spiraling down into the planet's atmosphere and impacting in a remote wilderness. Jackson slammed his fist again, leaving a crater in the table's surface. He bellowed with uncontrollable rage at the cowering subordinates before him. "Find her. Deploy the armada immediately. Scour that worthless rock until my daughter is found." His advisors could only nod, terrified to even speak. They had never seen the Emperor in such a state, maddened with rage and worry, on the verge of deploying the unimaginable technological might of the Sakari military on an unsuspecting and helpless fledgling civilization, all for the sake of a single missing princess. But on the surface of that primitive world, events were unfolding that would change the shape of galactic history forever. In a remote forest, a strapping young human lumberjack named Harry Scott stood in shock, his axe tumbling from numb fingers as he watched the fiery trail of a rapidly descending craft slam into the wooded valley before him, with an earth-shaking impact. Heart-pounding, Harry raced towards the crash site, clambering over fallen trees and leaping across gullies. He arrived at a scene of utter devastation. A massive furrow had been carved into the earth, trees shattered and ablaze, leading to the crumpled remains of a craft unlike anything he had ever seen. Approaching cautiously, he spotted a crumpled form within the wreckage, snagged in a tangle of strange, contorted metal. Harry rushed forward, not stopping to question, driven by instinct to help however he could. He grabbed the figure and pulled with all his strength, freeing them and carrying them to safety, just as a gout of flame erupted from the shuttle's rear compartment. Harry laid the limp figure on the forest loam, finally getting a good look. His jaw fell open in disbelief. It was a woman, at least he thought it was, but her skin was a pale blue, her ears slightly pointed, her garments some sort of form-fitting synthetic material he couldn't identify. She was bleeding profusely from multiple wounds, her breathing ragged and shallow. Scooping her up as carefully as he could, Harry carried the injured alien woman back towards his cabin, his mind awhirl. He didn't know who or what she was, where she had come from, or what calamity had befallen her. All he knew was that she needed help, and he was the only one around to provide it. As he reached his rustic dwelling and laid her gently on his bed, Harry couldn't have known the magnitude of the events he had just set in motion. An injured alien princess, the key to the survival or destruction of his entire planet, was now in his care. And high above the Earth, the mightiest war fleet in the galaxy was mobilizing, ready to burn the world to cinders if she was not found. The fate of two civilizations now rested on the broad shoulders of a primitive lumberjack from a fledgling world, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the days that followed, as Zara slowly recovered from her injuries, she and Harry began to cautiously open up to each other. Harry tended to her wounds, bringing her fresh water and the best food he could forage from the surrounding wilderness. At first, their communication was halting, hampered by the vast gulf between their worlds and experiences. But as Zara regained her strength, she began to share more of her story. With the aid of a small translation device salvaged from her wrecked shuttle, she painted a picture for Harry of a galaxy beyond his wildest dreams, vast empires spanning countless star systems, civilizations that had risen and fallen over millennia, technological wonders that could reshape worlds and bridge the voids between stars. Harry listened in awe, his mind struggling to grasp the sheer scale of it all. In turn, he shared with Zara the details of his own simple life, the quiet satisfaction of a hard day's work in the forest, the changing of the seasons, the small, tight-knit community in the nearby town. To his surprise, Zara seemed genuinely interested, asking question after question about the minutiae of human existence. As they talked, a bond began to form between them, a connection born of shared trauma and the dawning realization that they were more alike than different, despite the vastness of the gulf between their worlds. Meanwhile, in the cold depths of space, the Sakari search efforts were intensifying. Scout ships fanned out along the edges of human-occupied space, their advanced sensors probing for any sign of the missing princess. On board one such vessel, a young Sakari officer named Terran was monitoring the sensor readouts when a faint signal caught her eye. It was the emergency beacon from Zara's shuttle, badly damaged, but still transmitting intermittently. Terran quickly triangulated the source. A primitive world on the fringes of explored space, a place called Earth. Excitement surging through her, Terran quickly transmitted her findings back to the main fleet. But even as she did so, a warning klaxon blared through the small scout ship. The sensors had detected an incoming asteroid swarm, the tumbling rocks moving at incredible velocities on a direct collision course. Terran barely had time to send a final burst transmission before the swarm was upon her tiny vessel. The ship was torn apart in a silent maelstrom of rending metal and shattering stone, leaving nothing but drifting debris in its wake. Back on Earth, oblivious to the larger forces searching for them, Harry was teaching Zara the basics of wilderness survival. He showed her how to set snares for small game, how to find edible plants and mushrooms, how to purify water and start a fire. Zara absorbed it all with a fierce concentration, her quick mind adapting to the challenges of this strange new world. In the evenings, huddled around the warmth of the cabin's small fireplace, they would share meals and stories. Zara would regale Harry with tales of the intrigues and challenges of her life as a galactic princess, the delicate diplomatic balancing acts, the constant maneuvering for power and influence. Harry, in turn, would describe the simple joys and sorrows of his life, the satisfaction of a job well done, the quiet beauty of a forest at dawn, the heartbreak of losing his parents at a young age. Slowly but surely, they were forging a connection that transcended the vast differences between their worlds. But that fragile bond was about to face its greatest test yet. It began with a distant rumble, the sound of engines on the wind. Harry and Zara emerged from the cabin to see a group of armed men approaching on foot, grim-faced and heavily laden with high-powered hunting rifles and traps. Harry recognized them immediately. Poachers, rough men from the far side of the mountain who would sometimes cross into this valley in search of rare prey. Harry quickly ushered Zara back inside, his mind racing. He knew these men would be trouble. They were notorious for their quick tempers and their disregard for the law. And if they found Zara, with her strange appearance and technology, he couldn't let himself finish that thought. Grabbing his axe, Harry whispered for Zara to stay put and slipped outside, moving to intercept the poachers. He called out a greeting, keeping his voice level and friendly, but the hard-eyed man in the lead just sneered. Well, well, look who it is, the mountain man himself. Out of the way, boy, we've got work to do. Harry stood his ground, axe held loosely at his side. This is my land, friend. I'm afraid I can't let you pass. The poacher's eyes narrowed, his hand dropping to the rifle at his side. Is that so? And just what are you going to do about it? At that moment, Zara emerged from the cabin, a strange device in her hand pointed directly at the poachers. It hummed with an eerie blue light, the air around it shimmering as if with heat. I believe he told you to leave, Zara said calmly, her voice carrying an unmistakable note of command. I suggest you listen. The poachers hesitated, suddenly uncertain in the face of this unexpected show of force. Harry held his breath, praying they would back down. But in the next heartbeat, the lead poacher snarled a curse and raised his rifle to his shoulder. Harry charged before the man could finish squeezing the trigger, swinging his axe with the speed and surety of a lifetime's practice. The heavy blade caught the poacher in the shoulder, sending him spinning to the ground, his shot gone wide. And then all hell broke loose. As the battle with the poachers raged, Harry and Zara remained unaware of the seismic shifts occurring in the world beyond their remote forest. Governments across the globe scrambled to respond to the sudden arrival of an alien armada in Earth's orbit. But deep in the wilderness, life continued much as it had for the past weeks. One crisp autumn night, Harry slept soundly in his cabin, exhausted from a day of chopping firewood. Zara dozed fitfully nearby, still plagued by nightmares of her crash. Neither noticed the faint hum that cut through the night air as a sleek Sakari stealth craft settled silently in a nearby clearing. The cabin door creaked open. 4 shadowy figures slipped inside, their movements fluid and precise. Zara's eyes snapped open at the sound of a floorboard's faint groan. She gasped, recognizing the distinctive armor of Sakari commandos. "Harry!" she shouted, leaping to her feet. Harry jolted awake, instinctively reaching for his axe. He found himself staring down the barrel of an energy weapon, its tip glowing an ominous blue. "Step away from the princess!" the lead commando ordered, his voice distorted by his helmet. Harry's grip tightened on his axe. "I don't know who you are, but you're not taking her." The commando's finger tensed on the trigger. "Final warning, human." "Wait!" Zara cried out, stepping between Harry and the commandos. "This man saved my life. He pulled me from the wreckage, tended my wounds. Without him, I would be dead." The lead commando hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. "Is this true, Your Highness?" Zara nodded emphatically. "Every word. Harry has been nothing but kind and protective." After a tense moment, the commando turned to Harry. "It seems we owe you a debt of gratitude, human. You will accompany us back to the flagship." "Flagship?" Harry's brow furrowed in confusion. "There's no time to explain," Zara said, grasping his hand. "Please, Harry, trust me." Bewildered, Harry allowed himself to be led from the cabin. Outside, he gaped at the sleek craft waiting in the clearing, its hull shimmering as if not quite solid. Within minutes, they were airborne, the earth falling away beneath them at dizzying speed. Harry pressed his face to a viewport, watching in awe as they broke through the atmosphere and into the star-speckled void of space. The Sakari flagship Imperator loomed before them, a behemoth of gleaming metal that dwarfed anything Harry had ever seen. As they docked in one of its cavernous hangars, he felt a wave of vertigo wash over him. "Welcome aboard the Imperator," one of the commandos said, not unkindly. "I hope you're ready to meet the Emperor." Before Harry could respond, he was whisked through a maze of corridors, each more opulent than the last. Finally, they arrived at a set of massive doors that slid open with a hiss. Emperor Jackson stood at the far end of a grand chamber, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Guards flanked him on either side, weapons trained on Harry. "So," Jackson's voice boomed across the chamber, "this is the human who dared interfere in matters beyond his comprehension." Harry swallowed hard but stood his ground. "Your Majesty, I meant no harm. I only wanted to help." "Help?" Jackson spat. "You've embroiled your entire species in an intergalactic incident." "Father, please." Zara stepped forward. "Harry saved me. He pulled me from the wreckage at great personal risk. He tended my wounds, protected me from danger. I owe him my life." Jackson's expression softened slightly as he looked at his daughter. After a long moment, he waved a hand dismissively. "Very well. The human may live, but he will be detained until this matter is dedicationed." As guards moved to take Harry away, Jackson turned to a bank of screens. "Prepare a transmission to Earth. It's time they understood the gravity of their situation." Moments later, his face appeared on screens across the globe. "People of Earth," he intoned, "I am Emperor Jackson of the Sakari Empire. You have inadvertently become entangled in matters far beyond your understanding. Surrender Princess Zara immediately, or face the full might of our war machine. You have one planetary rotation to comply." As the transmission ended, Harry was led away to a holding cell. Zara watched him go, her mind racing. She knew she had to act fast to prevent a war that would destroy Harry's world and countless others. With stubborn persistence, she began to formulate a plan. Zara's heart pounded as she led Harry through the twisting corridors of the Imperator. The massive warship hummed with energy, but at this late hour, the passageways were eerily quiet. She gripped Harry's hand tightly, guiding him past security checkpoints with carefully timed movements. "Almost there," Zara whispered, her fingers flying over a control panel. The door to the secondary hangar bay slid open with a soft hiss. They slipped inside, immediately spotting the sleek scout ship. Zara rushed to the cockpit, her hands dancing across the controls as she prepped for launch. Harry stood guard, every muscle tense. The sudden blare of alarms shattered the silence. Imperial guards poured into the hangar, energy weapons blazing. Harry dove for cover behind a stack of crates, snatching up a fallen guard's weapon. He'd never fired anything like it before, but instinct took over. He squeezed the trigger, sending bolts of searing light toward their attackers. "Zara, hurry!" Harry shouted over the chaos. The scout ship's engines roared to life just as Emperor Jackson stormed in, fury etched on his face. "Zara!" he bellowed. "Stop this madness at once!" Zara's fingers flew faster, initiating the launch sequence. The ship lurched forward, nearly free. A devastating barrage rocked the craft. Alarms shrieked as the hull breached, atmosphere venting rapidly. Harry stumbled toward Zara, choking in the thinning air. "The escape pod!" he gasped, shoving her toward the tiny craft. "Go!" "Harry, no!" Zara cried, struggling against him. "Come with me!" He sealed the hatch, Zara's anguished face visible through the small window. "Save both our worlds," Harry said, his voice barely audible as the pod ejected. Rough hands seized Harry as Jackson's soldiers swarmed him. Through the viewport, he watched Zara's pod streak away, a tiny speck against the vastness of space. Hours later, Harry stood before Emperor Jackson in the throne room, battered but defiant. "You dare interfere in matters beyond your comprehension, human?" Jackson snarled. "I protected someone who needed help," Harry said. "I'd do it again." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Your primitive heroics have earned you nothing but death. You will serve as an example to any who would defy the Sakari Empire." As guards dragged Harry away, neither he nor anyone aboard the Imperator realized that Zara's damaged pod had veered wildly off course. It plummeted through the atmosphere of a hellish world, flames licking at the hull as it plunged toward a landscape of ash and fire. The impact threw Zara clear of the wreckage. She struggled to her feet, disoriented, choking on sulfurous air. Through the haze, massive shapes appeared. Reptilian warriors, their scales glinting in the ruddy light of active volcanoes. Zara raised her hands in a gesture of peace, but the Krax warriors paid no heed. Rough, scaled hands seized her arms, and Zara found herself a prisoner once more, this time on the deadly world of Kraxar Prime. The acrid stench of sulfur filled Zara's nostrils as she struggled against the electrified shackles binding her wrists. Kraxar Prime's harsh volcanic landscape stretched endlessly before her, a hellscape of bubbling lava and jagged obsidian. The Krax warriors' scaled hands dug into her arms, their claws drawing pinpricks of blood as they dragged her forward. Jakrath, the towering Krax warlord, loomed before her. His eyes, like molten gold, bored into hers as he spoke, his voice a guttural rumble. "What brings a Sakari princess to our world? Speak or suffer." Zara lifted her chin, meeting his gaze. "I crashed, nothing more." A backhand from Jakrath sent her sprawling. "Lies! Your technology, your secrets, divulge them or face the culling." Despite the pain lancing through her body, Zara pushed herself up. "I'll tell you nothing." Jakrath's lips pulled back in a snarl. "So be it! To the arena!" Meanwhile, aboard the Imperator, Harry's muscles screamed as another jolt of electricity coursed through him. Emperor Jackson's face twisted with frustration. "Why won't you break, human?" Jackson spat. Harry met the Emperor's gaze, his voice hoarse but unwavering. Because you're wrong. About Earth, about Zara, about everything. Jackson's eyes narrowed. Perhaps watching your precious princess die will change your mind. A shimmering portal materialized, revealing the hellish arena of Kraxar Prime. Harry's heart clenched as he saw Zara stumble into view, a simple blade her only defense. The ground trembled. A massive form erupted from a nearby geyser, a behemoth of living magma and razor-sharp obsidian. It towered over Zara, poised to strike. No! Harry smacked his heads against the energy barrier. Again and again he struck, ignoring the searing pain. A crack appeared in the barrier, then another. With a deafening boom, the portal ruptured. Harry felt himself yanked forward, tumbling through searing heat and choking ash. He hit the ground hard, the arena's blistering surface scorching his skin. Disoriented, he looked up to see the lava beast bearing down on Zara. Harry didn't think, he acted. He threw himself at Zara, tackling her out of the monster's path just as its massive claw slammed into the ground where she'd stood. Zara stared at him, eyes wide with disbelief. Harry? How? No time, he gasped, pulling her to her feet. We need to move. The beast roared, a sound like a volcano erupting. It charged, each step shaking the arena. Harry snatched up Zara's fallen blade. It felt puny in his hands, but it was all they had. He pushed Zara behind him, facing the oncoming monstrosity. Stay back. The lava beast's claw swept down. Harry dodged, slashing at its arm. The blade barely scratched its obsidian hide. Again and again the monster attacked. Harry ducked and weaved, looking for any weakness. His muscles burned, his lungs choked on the sulfurous air, but he refused to yield. Across the galaxy, billions watched. On Earth, in bars and living rooms and military command centers, humanity held its collective breath. Harry stumbled, the beast's claw catching him across the chest. He fell, crying out in pain. The monster loomed over him, ready to deliver the killing blow. With the last of his strength, Harry thrust the blade upward, finding a crack in the creature's armored hide. He pushed with everything he had left. The beast howled, molten blood gushing from the wound. It toppled backward, crashing to the ground with an earth-shaking impact. Harry collapsed, his body broken and burned. Zara rushed to his side, cradling his head in her lap. Harry, she sobbed, why did you come back for me? He looked up at her, a faint smile on his lips. I don't regret a thing. For her. His eyes closed, his chest stilled. Zara's anguished cry echoed across the arena. She gently laid Harry's body down, then stood, gripping his bloodied blade. The Krax warriors approached, weapons raised. Zara faced them, grief hardening into iron commitment. For Harry, she whispered. Then, with a soul-shattering battle cry, she charged.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.